event who is trying to beat them. So I'm sure he'll have his fans among the audience here. And let's go down to see if he can do that and finish the job. And he will be on the play throughout this top 8, including this match as our first seed. And he has a nice 1-2-3 curve out here on the play.
Oh, that's what we call the dream. The 2 is even Robber of the Rich. The 3 is even Annex. This is the draw that has gotten Burton so far in this event. And being on the play here is crucial. You know he's been able to hang against these reclamation strategies to make it this deep, even beating Autumn Burchett for that 1 seed. He's got to feel good about this sort of hand.
And not the hand that Richard Zhang, I think, is looking for. It does have its merits to it. It has Wilderness Reclamation on 4 if you can get there, 2 copies of Shark Typhoon if you can ambush some 1/1s of those, get some card advantage back in the process. Blast Zone can be strong. Ultimately, though, I think on the draw, this is just too bad a hand. We got to chip it back for something more consistent.
Yeah, this hand doesn't have green. It doesn't have acceleration. You're going to answer Burton developing an Annex with a 1/1 Shark token? Is that our plan?
Right. What happens when Burton just plays a Robber of the Rich, or a creature bigger than a 1/1? That seems like it's bad news. And we do find the green source here with the forest. Yeah.
Yeah, this is something.
So now all we need to do is rip a growth pile to complete the comeback here. And there is Robber of the Rich for Brandon. We'll get an expansion explosion. Okay, that could come into play in an interesting way if this game goes long. Already 5 lands in Burton's hand.
On the other hand, it could also just be an expansion.
Yeah, that too. Oh, and there's Embercleave for the actual perfect curve out here for Brandon Burton.
It's what we call a Splinter Twin situation with Annex hardened in the Forge.
Oh, I thought Embercleave and a creature was a Splinter Twin situation.
Annex is a creature, Dom. Catch up, buddy.
This is why you're the color and I'm the play-by-play. You have the analysis nailed down. So now Brandon Burton's thinking, okay, I'm playing Annex. What could Richard Zhang have? Clearly there's a reason he kept this hand on the draw. Is it just going to be Growth Spiral into a 4-drop? If so, how do I navigate around that? Is there a reason not to attack here? I don't think there is, but you got to think through these things.
The big plan at this point is actually just playing around Brazen Borrower just a little bit to try and make sure that this Robber of the Rich is still going to get triggered, no matter what combination of cards that Zhang has in his hand.
And that one is interesting because ordinarily you might want to save the Annex for post-combat in case Zhang feels the need to bounce one of your creatures now to save damage, but the Robber of the Rich math does throw that off a little bit.
Right, just being able to get those extra cards is going to be worth so much over the course of a long game.
And Richard Zhang already down to 12 heading into his third turn. And Fervent Champion as well, the perfect pickup.
That's basically a free spell here. When you're planning to use Embercleave for 4, getting the haste threat for 1 mana, that's so good here.
Yeah, this turn was already scripted out for Burton, and he found the perfect card to embellish it. But
that's not scripted. This is not what we thought was going to happen here.
Yeah, Brandon disagrees. He figures, why potentially walk into a card that could disrupt the Embercleave on a creature when I can develop my board, play another big threat, start attacking for damage, and next turn I can follow up with the Embercleave when Zhang's defenses maybe are down.
And this is Burton paying so much respect for a copy of Aethergust out of Zhang's deck. This whole thing, Burton's just saying there has to be a reason the Zhang kept his hand, there has to be something better than a Brazen Borrower, and we know there's not, but Burton doesn't.
Absolutely, and that's why, again, from the aggro side, you need to make sure that all of your threats line up in the right way, and Brandon doing just that, and really putting Richard Zhang under a lot of pressure. Wilderness Reclamation into Nightpack Ambusher, threatening to do some kind of thing in this game, but that Embercleave is going to slam the door shut.
Well, you can't actually even do the Nightpack Ambusher with this land configuration. Remember, earlier Zhang was missing green, and the second green that he did end up finding is a tapped Temple of Mystery that does not fit this curve.
Yeah, that lack of green mana, an issue early, and it's an issue here right now for Richard Zhang.
And if Zhang just goes for the Shark Typhoon, Embercleave's going to close it. I think Brandon Burton is going to end up winning this first game.
And there's no way he doesn't go for something now, right? Okay, well, this is Blast Zone, but now the door is open for Embercleave again.
Uh-oh. I think we have a believer in the cleave.
A Splinter Twin situation for Brandon Burton here in Game 1. He takes the lead in our semifinals.
And that is just how you drew it up if you're on Burton's side. We saw a little bit of a stumble from Zhang, which is weird to say for someone who cast several spells in a row, but Brazen Borrower is not an exciting thing, right? Ultimately, Zhang needed a slightly more interactive draw than that to really do anything to stem the bleeding against Burton.
Absolutely. And so for Richard Zhang, we see Bonecrusher Giant, Scorching Dragonfire, and a third Ether Gust as the automatic inclusions here. Nothing else really jumping out to me. A chance to get Mystical Dispute and negate out of the deck. The one copy of Tail's End actually is a little interesting. That can hit Annex and Embercleave, and it does have its applications, but even that I think is maybe a little bit too narrow.
Yeah, the problem is you'll just end up falling behind all of these one-drop spells if you lean too hard on something like Tail's End. Just look at that last game. It may have tagged one of those Annexes, but how long are you going to hold up mana for this Tail's End while you're taking damage from Scorch Spitters and Friends?
And we see the common line of Shaving, Wilderness Reclamation, and Expansion Explosion against these aggro decks, where you're looking to stabilize the game with creatures a lot of the time, and so having an Expansion Explosion that's taking up space in your hand, or Wilderness Reclamation with no other payoff isn't where you want to be.
Right, a lot of the name of the game here is just really optimizing your curve, trying to have a leaner, more robust suite of early interaction just for the sake of making sure you don't get clowned by that early draw like we saw last game.
And now look at this, though, for Zhang. A much better draw than he had in the first game. Still missing that second green source for Nightpack Ambusher, but he does have the Growth Spiral on the play into the turn 3 Reclamation, potentially with the turn 4 with the turn 3 Ambusher too, depending on what happens.
Yeah, this is just the perfect draw for Zhang. If he can find that second green source here.
And Burton is on 5 cards. Not a bad 5 cards. He does pick up a light out of stage to claw some of that card advantage back, but did have to put back 2 Embercleaves, which could help him to punch through that Nightpack Ambusher. And we see Red Cat Melee enter the deck here too. Just a nice sideboard card against Nightpack Ambusher, Shark Typhoon, Bonecrusher Giant in particular. And even when you do have to lose a land for it, that's a price you're usually happy to pay with your red aggro deck.
Yeah, this is a situation where sacrificing even just a land or something of that kind to answer a Nightpack Ambusher for 1 mana is such a strong mana exchange that you're happy with it.
So no second green source for Zhang. He does pick up a Scorching Dragonfire though, which can take care of one of these threats, and a second Wilderness Reclamation. So if Zhang draws a Shark Typhoon or an Expansion Explosion, we are going upstairs real fast and real hard.
Now it's a question if Burton is going to go ahead and just develop a haste threat.
Yeah, Subira, another pickup for this deck from Core Set 2021, making itself known. Used to such great effect by Brandon Burton against Corey Baumeister in that quarterfinal.
Right, just making other creatures unblockable is a subtle ability on this that's so nice whenever the battlefield gets so clogged up by shark tokens.
There is a way this game could proceed, however, where if Zhang just draws a blank on this turn, and Uro is not a blank, we can take that possibility off the table now, but, Zhang can't just spin his tires forever, and especially, if he's lacking a second green source for this Ambusher, has to rely on Reclamation to power that out. If that just gets tagged by a Red Cat Melee, then Brandon keeps applying pressure and might be able to make it happen.
Right, with this Light Up the Stage in hand and very few other spells in Burton's hand, I think this is a spot where we're very likely to just see Red Cat Melee go ahead, take care of this Ambusher, and Burton go about his business.
Yeah, we can melee the Ambusher, attack for 3+1 with the Scorch Spitter, and then light up the stage.
That sounds like a great turn.
Yeah, and I think Zhang is both of these. I imagine going to the bottom, unless maybe the Fable Passage is the extra card he needs for the Euro.
It really depends on how valuable Zhang thinks this copy of Blast Zone is, because it is ultimately a removal spell when you have this many copies of Wilderness Reclamation. As it stands, we see 2 cards in the graveyard for Uro. Assuming your Nightpack Ambusher dies, that's the worst case scenario, of course. That's going to put you up to 3. Fabled Passage is 4, and Blast Zone could be 5. So this could just be Zhang rolling up the 5 cards necessary to go ahead and get Uro in the graveyard. And when you have 2 lands on top, you're going to get to play both of them next turn. I actually don't hate topping both of these.
But right now, look, we have the basic Mountain in play for Zhang. So between Uro's mana requirements, Mountain plus Blast Zone means we're not casting and escaping it in the same turn.
Oh, absolutely not. But you are getting to use that Blast Zone as removal in the same turn that you're gaining some life with Uro. I don't hate this line from Zhang here.
So Red Cat Melee can take down Nightpack Ambusher, Unfortunately, Brandon does lose a land, which, like I said, often is the price you're willing to pay. When you have Torbran in hand, though, you really need to get to that 4th land. Not that the Sage can help him do that, though.
Burton really hoping to just hit a land and, let's say, a 2-drop.
Okay, that'll do.
A 1-drop counts. That's close enough. A land off the top for Burton will be so close to game.
Unfortunately, that Blast Zone can clear out 2 of those attackers, meaning Subiru will be alone in the caravan on this one.
And this is exactly why we saw both of those cards stay on top of Zhang's library, because when you see Burton playing a low resource game, you know the biggest thing you have to worry about is just going wide around this copy of Uro, and Blast Zone is one of the best cards at checking that.
Worth noting too that Torbran is fantastic with Subiru, where the creature's power itself does not get buffed, so you can make the Torbran itself or something else unblockable, but you are connecting for a lot more damage when you do.
And Zhang just making sure you actually get all the blue off these lands for the sake of activating Castle Vantress.
Absolutely. So the first grade 2 here.
Oh!
Oof, 2 copies of Bone Crusher Giant.
Crusher Giants.
But it looks like both of those going on the bottom here.
Interesting.
He might decide if he can only really make use of one of those in a turn, then that's not enough or it's too slow. But with Uro, you can gain access to both of them. Those can team up to maybe kill Subiru or Torbran.
I imagine the thought process here is just that Zhang sees this Vantress with these Wilderness Reclamations as so much card selection that it might just be worth it to try and dig to your cards that slam the door shut.
Yeah, he's building his own dig-through time here. And look at that, Embercleave. Wow, so if Zhang lets Brandon go to combat here, this could be...
I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I think Zhang has more nous than that if he's in this top 8, but that's a nice one in Brandon's pocket, but it looks like without the other creatures on the board, he's not going to have enough time to really make use of that.
All right, exactly 5 cards, getting exiled to this Uro, coming back, getting another land. Ooh, or a Scorching Dragonfire. How do you feel about that one?
I think that's going to seal the game up for Zhang here, I imagine. And Brandon put up an impressive fight on 5 cards, but we see if he could have replenished his board this turn with maybe 2 more creatures, or he was able to build towards that 4th land for the Torbran, we see that mulligan really coming back to bite him here.
Yeah, it felt like there were a couple spots where Burton really didn't get to develop in the way that he needed to in the early stages of the game, and now this Uro is just threatening to run away with it.
And here is a runaway Steamkin, returning home a little too late.
It'll be running away any second now.
And with Uro attacking, I think we are poised to go to a game 3 here between Richard Zhang and Brandon Burton, who will be back on the play again for game 3, which it's against aggro. There's this pattern where often you're able to steal a game just by the skin of your teeth, and then maybe they run you over one game where you're unprepared. And then if you go to a game 3 and you have to be on the draw again, you're thinking, I know exactly how this game could end, and we could definitely see this for Brandon in game 3.
I would expect Zhang to be far more aggressive with his mulligans going into that 3rd game.
Oh yeah, we're not keeping a hand that doesn't have early interaction or is missing a color this time. We gotta be disciplined.
Oh. Is that a no instep stop? Ooh.
Oh, it may be. And there's the Ultra Richard Zhang, so that clears that one up. I don't think it's going to matter too much here, but unfortunate turn of events. Scorching Dragonfire, attacking that runaway Steamkin. I don't know if that's more threatening than Subiru here, but either way, just removing one of those from the board should be enough to keep the board stabilized.
I think at this point, Zhang is under the impression that he's at a high enough life total that you don't want to just run into the disaster zone of this runaway Steamkin getting Embercleaved or something like that, and you aren't planning on blocking in the first place. So this 2-3 is close to text boxless.
Ether Gus is nice. We take that one for sure. And now we get to run the same trick with Wilderness Reclamation and Counter Vantress. We get to Scry 2 now. If we see a nice card we can draw into it with Uro. None of those fit the bill, so we can go attacking, drawing another card. And I guess that's a redraw, which with end-step tricks with Reclamation and Castle Vantress that's actually not the worst draw here.
No, not at all. This is a spot where we're going to see a ton of mana and activations of Castle Vantress from Zhang that makes this Triumph feel much stronger, something almost closer to 4C, where you scry 4 before you draw the cards.
Oh, Shark Typhoon he's keeping that one on top for sure. We found the card that we're looking for.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't see anything in Burton's main deck that can actually answer a Colossal Shark.
And we still have a Wilderness Reclamation trigger set to resolve. So you could QQ that one and just make a big shark, but we can also activate Castle to find an Expansion Explosion, which will definitely lock the game up.
All right, and this is the situation where Zhang is thinking, okay, how do I lose this game?
So Brandon finally finds that fourth land, attempts Torbrand, that's going to get gusted.
Imagine Zhang just doesn't care for the most part.
Well, we could cast anything at random, and I think it would be just fine right here. And there we are. Brandon's going to send this to a game 3. Do you think sideboarding changes for either player on play versus draw here?
I don't think we're really going to see it change too awful much. We might see Burton lean a little bit more into creatures while on the play, just because they are going to be naturally a little bit better against removal whenever you're playing them before Zhang has the mana to actually use them, whereas when Zhang is the one ahead on mana, you end up just kind of in this awful trading sequence from behind. Overall, though, I imagine the sideboard plans these players have are fairly static.
And for Brandon Burton, we see Bonecrusher Giant lurking in the sideboard there. Typically one of your premier threats in a mono-red aggro deck. You know, when we joke about the card quality, Bonecrusher Giant is no joke. That is a legitimately strong Magic card, one that's being used to good effect by Richard Zhang out of his Reclamation sideboard in this matchup. But I think Brandon realizes that, you know, it's just kind of fighting on the wrong axis, that there's no real good target to shock or stomp rather, and then a 3-mana 4/3, you know, is worse compared to all of your other 3-mana plays.
Right, most of the time that card is just going to end up dying to the same removal spells as other things, but at a worse mana exchange. Getting your Bonecrusher Giant Scorching Dragon fired is going to be fine whenever you're playing something like a Reclamation Mirror because you're trading half a card for a card, but when development is the name of the game and not card advantage, that's not what you want to be happening.
And it's so big for Brandon Burton that he can see no copies of Stormstrath in the 75, so he can deploy his creatures to the battlefield, not having to worry about all of them getting swept up in one fell swoop. And both players, it looks like, quickly going to 6 right here.
Ooh, this is a tough one if you're in Burton's seat. There's a Light Up the Stage and a Scorch Spitter on the play. I don't have the stones to throw this one back.
No, I think we saw in the previous game how quickly things can turn south when you go to 5, and there's no guarantee that 5 that you get to choose from that 7 is actually going to be good enough to get the job done. So yeah, we see Brandon keep the 6. I imagine putting one of the more expensive cards back, either the Tibalt or the Torbrand, and yeah, he's going to be leaning heavily on that Light Up the Stage. And for Richard Zhang, a very promising hand, but one that's not guaranteed to be fast enough. You know, in theory, this is turn 2 Spiral into turn 3 Reclamation plus Ambusher or Dragonfire, which is the dream. That's how you draw it up in this matchup. But if he misses on that untapped land, or if, you know, it's easy to imagine this hand being far too slow and getting run over too.
It feels like the card to put back here might just be that Night Pack Ambusher, just by virtue of the fact that you know there are cards like Red Cat Melee in Burton's deck. Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Wilderness Reclamation, the thing that Zhang puts to the bottom of his library for that scry.
Yeah, it's worse on 6 cards. If there's no guarantee you're going to make your land drops, then its effectiveness is really limited. And if you do get to land that 4-drop, I guess you'd rather it be Ambusher if you have to choose.
And Zhang really needing to find an untapped land here to not fall too far behind on the Scorch Spitter when Burton rips the second land.
And gets to play that Steam King, which could run away with this game if it's not dealt with right now. Fable Passage, another tap land for Richard Zhang. No turn 2 Growth Spiral, no turn 2 Scorching Dragonfire, or Purphosis Intervention.
And this is why Runaway Steamkin has Runaway in the name. We may just see this game be a runaway in the favor of Zhang.
Yeah, we have 2 red spells that we know Brandon can cast on his turn, and if he hits a third one off that can go to a 4/4. Now it's out of Dragonfire range. Easy to imagine how the Steamkin dominates this game by itself.
And you see Zhang having to scry a Castle Vantress to the bottom because he knows that even that untapped lane is not going to make a difference. It'll be too late.
Well, and that Tibalt potentially a nice follow-up for a future turn. We'll start here with Fervent Champion. And now we're attacking for 5 immediately. Richard Zhang down to 13. We get to follow up with Light Up the Sage. And Brandon really wants to hit a 3rd land here.
How about a 3rd and a 4th land? How you feel about that one?
I feel damn good if I'm Brandon Burton. And there is... I mean, a short land is not that great either for Richard Zhang. You really don't have 2 life points to spare right now.
How close to lethal is Torbran?
I'm no mathematician, Emma.
3,
I'm no math
6,
scientist, but
9, 16. I believe that's 15 if Zhang doesn't have anything now.
So he can Dragonfire the Runaway Steamkin. That might be the best use for this turn right now. Hoping to follow up with an Impact Ambusher. But then, do we have a good answer to Torbran?
There's just so much here that Zhang needs to be able to answer, and without one of those kind of one-card catch-ups like Storm's Wrath, this is such a tall order for Zhang.
I guess he can Purphose's Intervention at sorcery speed to kill Torbran, but you can't feel good about that. Okay, so there is an untapped land. So we get to put that in off the Growth Spiral, play the Fable Passage, and play Scorching Dragonfire.
Okay.
But that doesn't really change our plan for this turn or the future turns.
No, in this case, Zhang is still just going to end up taking 9 when Torbran comes down next turn.
So if anything, that may have been an unnecessary risk on Zhang's part. Right, it paid off for him. But if he had to play a Shockland here, you know, that 2 damage is a lot. And here we go, here's Torbran, Thane of Redfell. And this is 9 coming across by my count?
3, 6, and 9. You know, Torbran's fine.
So look, we can play Nightpack Ambusher as a 4/4, and then we're down on board. Or we can sink our mana into this intervention, kill the Torbran, and now we're taking at least 3, so anything else now is lethal, and Brandon has anything else. There's a Fervent Champion right there in his hand.
I think we're about to know our first finalist in the SCG Tour Online Championship Qualifier week 4.
Brandon Burton attacking for 4.
Oh no, this is 6. Those are 2
Oh, this is
champions.
a lot. Oh, wow. A little overkill here to send Brandon Burton to our finals.
Oh my god, and Brandon Burton getting it done.